Thank you for joining me. My name is Craig Hamby, and I am the Director of Elementary Education here at Lindbergh Schools. I would like to talk to you about proficiency skills. So let's start with a quick reminder of why we are doing standards-based learning. It is all about learning. We want to ensure that our focus is on student learning, not chasing points, not chasing certain grades, not chasing percentages, but where are we in our learning and what is next for each individual student. And we want to be clear and accurate when we're discussing student learning. We have a consistent set of priority standards, the essential skills that we want students to learn within a school year, and we have a consistent definition of mastery for those standards. So before we get into the proficiency scales, I want to talk just a moment about priority standards. So each grade level in all the core subject areas, we have developed our priority standards. DESE calls their priority standards their power standards. For Lindbergh, we just call them our priority standards. These are the essential skills within a grade level that we want students to master by the time they're ready to leave that grade level and matriculate up to the next grade level. These are the ones we've determined we want them all to be successful on, and just a reminder that these are end-of-year outcomes. So this is where we're trying to get to by the end of the year's mastery of these standards. So just one point to clarify is that if students aren't at the mastery level at the end of the first trimester or the end of the second trimester, that could mean we haven't taught to the mastery level yet, or it could mean that student needs a little bit more time, but our end goal is by the end of the year. So our grade cards that will come out, one in November, is a progress report. And then the second one at the end of the second trimester comes out in February. That is also a progress report, just reporting the progress of the student and their learning. And then our final report card comes in at the end of the school year, and that's where we hope to have mastery in all of these standards. So what are proficiency scales? So once we established those standards, we created a proficiency scale, which is kind of like a scoring guide that lets students know what they need to do to master that individual standard. So we unpacked those standards, tried to put them in some student-friendly language, and set up goals for the students to reach so they know exactly what they need to do and what they need to understand in order to be considered mastering that standard. Our hope is that these are going to be useful tools for the teacher to plan lessons, but also to communicate the levels of learning to a student and to parents. So before we go in and show an example, here's my mandatory analogy for the video is, think of the priority standard as the whole orange. But when we peel the orange, it breaks apart into sections, and these are our learning targets. So to make things easier for our staff and parents and students is we unpack the standard into these individual learning targets, which would be more like what individual lessons would be on. And what we're looking for is students to consistently be able to show mastery of those learning targets, and that will let us know when they have mastered the standard. So here's an example of one of our proficiency scales. This one's from third grade math, rounding whole numbers to the nearest 10 or 100. So I want to direct your attention to the bold area. That is our ME, Mastery of Essential Skills. So you'll see there's 3 check boxes there. Those are the learning targets for this standard. So that is where our instruction, that's where our assessment takes place. So teachers, when they feel that students can consistently do those 3 skills, they will be considered having mastered the standard. So that's why you see the bullseye on the target over there, and you see the child riding the bike. So previous video I talked about we're trying to learn how to ride a bike. So that's our target we're trying to get to. If a student can do that, we look up above to the level EE, which is exceeding our expectations, and we might start looking for examples that they're beyond mastery, or we might try to do some enrichment or some challenge with that student to keep them learning, because it's all about student growth. If they haven't quite mastered all of those learning targets, then we drop down to where you see the SD for still developing. That's kind of where students start. And this might give us an idea of, okay, they don't have all the prerequisite skills. They may not know the vocabulary. So this gives the teachers an idea of if they're not checking off those boxes in the mastery level, they can look down into the still developing level to get some ideas on maybe we need to work on some of these things to get us up to mastery. Now, just a breakdown of the scale in itself. The black bar at the top is where the actual standard from the Missouri Learning Standards comes from. And then we unpacked it into these, into the languages you see on the scale, into the different learning targets to make it a little bit more easy to understand for our students and parents. Here's another example. This is a 4th grade language and grammar standard. So same setup. You look to the ME level where the target and the bike rider is, and that gives you your learning targets that we need for this. If we were having trouble with that, the teacher might look down to the still developing level. Are there some things down here we need to work on? If they've already mastered this, we start looking up to the exceeding expectations. What can I do to push them forward? One thing this one has that the previous one did not was up at above the black bar at the top where we have the Missouri Learning Standard, you see the wording language and grammar conventions. That is how this standard will appear on our progress reports and grade cards. So that's what you'll see on the report card, and then the actual standard is there in the black bar, but we didn't want to put all that language on the report card. So that was a quick overview of what our proficiency scales are. The teachers use those to record data on the students, to plan lessons, to figure out what's next, and to communicate learning to their students and to families. If you have any questions at all, of course you can talk to your classroom teacher, but feel free to email me any questions. Once again, my name is Craig Hamby, and you can reach me at chamby@lindberghschools.ws. Thank you.